My friends, my brothers, my sisters, Islamophobia hurts. Islamophobia traumatizes. Islamophobia kills. It has hurt and hit too close this time. It's been a painful few weeks, few days for the Canadian Muslim community, but it's time for us to bounce back. It's time for us to build and rebuild our resilience, and it's time, more importantly, for action. And I think about the 15-year-old bright and beautiful girl, Yumna Salman, mercilessly ran over and murdered by a Muslim-hating terrorist in London, Ontario, a couple of weeks ago. I think of the safety of my own 15-year-old daughter in my own home. As I think of the helplessness of the 9-year-old Faiz Salman, who was crying out helplessly for his parents in the hospital, I think about my own 9-year-old at home. Our Honorable Prime Minister Justin Trudeau recently asked, how can we explain this hate, this violence to a child in the hospital? Well, Mr. Trudeau, I have to explain this to my children almost on a weekly basis. Just a couple of months ago, I had a hard time explaining to my children, to my kids, the unthinkable tragedy of the Palestinian children bombed in the most sacred nights of Islam, in one of the most sacred sites of Islam, Al-Aqsa. Just barely 2 weeks ago, we were just reeling from the discovery and shock of unspeakable crimes against 215 Indigenous children in Kamloops, BC. Once again, I was at loss of words when my son asked me, how is it possible to kill 215 children and hide their graves? What a heinous crime. And now we have an ideal Canadian Muslim family walking down the street one afternoon who was targeted and ran over by a murderer and a terrorist in London, Ontario, in the heart of the pioneering Canadian Muslim community, in the heart of Ontario's first mosque or masjid, a host that is the host of the first mosque or masjid. Brothers and sisters, we know that this is just the tip of the iceberg, because we know from research that only 1 out of 10 hate crimes are actually reported. Islamophobia hurts. Islamophobia traumatizes. Islamophobia kills. It is hard not to tear up when you think about the sickness of hate and Islamophobia and its impact on our children. The 17 children who were orphaned by the killer of 6 exemplary fathers in the Quebec mass shooting on January 29, 2017 are still waiting for an answer, Mr. Trudeau. I had the honor of meeting most of these beautiful and courageous widows and orphans of the Quebec mass shooting 4 years ago, as I accompanied a team of volunteers led by Dawanet to raise funds for these families. Every time a terrorist or hate monger or white supremacist attacks or kills a Muslim in Canada, not only the unhealable wounds of these families and survivors are opened again, but they wonder how come nothing has changed to counter the epidemic of systemic and violent Islamophobia in Canada. And in fact, they're traumatized knowing that their children will suffer under the discriminatory laws of Bill 21, which the federal government has done nothing to intervene or to abolish. Islamophobia hurts, Islamophobia traumatizes, and Islamophobia kills. Sadly, we have some inconvenient truths and explanations that most of us do not want to hear. Unfortunately, for far too long, we have been pretending that Islamophobia does not exist, and fail to understand its devastating impact over 1 million Canadians. For far too long, we have allowed voices of hate in Canada to take root, nurture, spread, and since 9/11, we have emboldened the white supremacist groups and other hate mongers to get louder, to get more organized, to hold public events like these, and more. Let me remind my fellow Canadians about what Islamophobia looks like in numbers. Just a couple of stats for you. 46% of Canadians have an unfavorable view of Islam more than any other religion. 56% Canadians believe that Islam suppresses women's rights. More than half people living right here in Canada, in Ontario, feel mainstream Muslim doctrine promotes violence. 52% Canadians feel Muslims can only be trusted a little or not at all. 7% Canadians support banning hijab or headscarves in public. And 51% support government surveillance of mosques. Guess what, my folks? This is half of Canadians essentially. 1 in 2 Canadians have a problem with Islam or Muslims, thanks to the systemic and ongoing Islamophobia that we have let to fester. We are living a mirage. There is a major dissonance, major disconnect, major dichotomy between the Canada that we like to portray to the world and the Canada that majority of marginalized community experience on a daily basis. We have a sad legacy of dark colonial settler project and a genocidal policies in our country. My brothers and sisters, Islamophobia hurts, Islamophobia traumatizes, Islamophobia kills. As I end, number one, my friends, to the Muslim community who is here grieving, I want to share a couple of things, a couple of words of comfort and advice. Number one, of course, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. To God we belong, to God we return. Number one, remember the dua of our times. It is hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil, which is the dua that reminds us that God is sufficient for us, and God is what a great guardian is He. This is a dua or supplication or prayer of majority of prophets of God. So let God be your guardian. Take care of your mental health. Take care of the mental health of your children. Talk to them and let them process anti-Muslim bullying and Islamophobia. And seek professional help if you need to. Be on guard when you're outside. Take protective measures, but do not be paranoid. And stand tall and walk like the Prophet walked. Prophet Muhammad walked. Keep walking with confidence. Keep walking with determination. Keep walking like our Prophet, peace be upon him, did. With an intention. And if you stumble and fall, get back up again. Rebuild your resilience and bounce back. Because you are an ummah, you are a community that not only fights for yourself, but you fight for everybody else. So keep fighting all forms of hate, all genocides right here in Canada and all around the world. And if you haven't already done so, as some others have said, call out on your MPs, on your MPPs, on your councillors, as well as trustees and the mayor and security officials and of all levels for not doing enough to dismantle Islamophobia. Demand concrete actions, because time for hollow statements is over. To my friends who are here from other communities, who are here as our allies in solidarity, we request you to not only stand with us, but walk with us. Walk in our shoes. Walk with us by calling out voices of hate and Islamophobia in your own families and communities. Walk with us by organizing educational programs to educate our neighbors about Muslim community. And walk with us by supporting our calls to action against Islamophobia. And walk with us by by becoming our ambassadors. And last but not least, to our my dear elected officials, policymakers, and security agencies, we ask you to not only walk with us, but walk the talk. We ask you to not only walk with us, but be in the front lines and lead us. We ask you to walk with us by criminalizing all forms of Islamophobia. Walk with us by dismantling hate groups, white supremacist groups, and end their activities. Walk with us by targeting online hate head-on. Walk with us by not letting Islamophobia propagate in the name of freedom of speech. Walk with us by not allowing CRA to unfairly target Muslim charities. Walk with us by protecting Islamic institutions against terrorists. Walk with us by funding Muslim organizations for community empowerment. And walk with us by engaging Muslim community in developing safe, peaceful and prosperous and productive Canada for us all. The buck stops here. Time for hollow statement speeches is over. Islamophobia kills, Islamophobia hurts, and Islamophobia traumatizes. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.